where the alphas are dangerously possessive and our heroines never bow down without a fight. Quick question for my favorite pack before we dive into today's chaos. What is your absolute favorite midnight snack? Let me know in the comments, and drop a donut emoji if you're ready for some serious romantic tension, or a parrot emoji if your pet is currently judging your spicy audiobook choices. Today, we have a wildly special one. It's funny, it's fast-paced, and it involves a very stubborn delivery driver, a swearing macaw, and a terrifying Lycan king who just bit a literal chunk out of a pastry box to get to his fated mate. But before the sparks fly, if you want to support the channel, unlock exclusive pack badges, and get early access to our steadiest slow burn stories, hit that join button down below. It helps keep the microphones on and the audiobooks coming your way. Now, take a deep breath. The sugar has been delivered, and the king is about to lose all control. Let's get into the story. Chapter 1. Rain drummed a relentless rhythm against the windshield of the rattling, faded indigo delivery van. Harper Hayes stared through the smeared glass at the grand entrance of the luxury hotel. She pulled her uniform jacket tighter around her chest, bracing for the cold. "This is the last stop," Harper announced. Captain, her blue and gold macaw, shuffled along the wooden perch inside his brass wire travel cage. The bird ruffled his vibrant feathers, displaying the glaring gap where one tail feather remained missing. Last stop," Captain squawked. "We drop the sugar off, we collect the cash, and we go home to sleep." Harper reached across the cracked vinyl passenger seat. She grabbed her worn brown leather satchel and slung the strap over her shoulder. The hide pouch held her van keys and a rain-smudged delivery clipboard. Next, she hooked her fingers through the top ring of the brass avian carrier. Finally, she scooped up a towering stack of pink bakery boxes, balancing the cardboard against her chin. She shoved the van door open with her elbow. The metal hinges gave a sharp squeak. Cold water hit her face the second she stepped onto the asphalt. Her scuffed brown work boots splashed into a deep puddle, soaking her socks. Harper marched toward the hotel's rear service entrance. She bumped the heavy door open with her hip and stepped into a bright, dry hallway. Rainwater dripped from her messy auburn hair, which she kept twisted up in a plastic claw clip. A hotel worker in a crisp uniform stood behind a small security desk. He held up a hand. "You cannot bring that bird inside," the worker stated. "I have a midnight catering order," Harper countered. "Sweet 40. My boss said the client needs these right now." "I do not care about your boss. Animals are a strict health code violation. Leave the parrot outside." "The heater in my van is broken," Harper argued. "The temperature is dropping. If I leave him out there, he will freeze." "Put a towel over the cage." "I am not leaving my pet in a freezing vehicle." The worker crossed his arms. "Then you cannot go up. I will call security and have you escorted off the property." Why does every late-night delivery turn into a battle of wills? "Look," Harper tried a different tactic. "I take the elevator to the top floor. I hand over the pink pastry cartons. I collect the payment. I walk right back out. You never see me again, and your rich client gets his midnight snack." "The service elevator broke 3 hours ago," the worker said. He pointed down the corridor. "You have to use the stairs." Harper stared at him. She tapped her scuffed boot against the pristine tile floor. She hated delays, and she despised climbing stairs with her hands full. "Suite 40 is on the 4th floor," the worker added. He offered a smug smile. "Good luck with the climb, Baker." Harper turned her back on the desk. She walked down the long corridor, listening to the neon lights buzz overhead. "Stairs!" Captain yelled from inside the brass enclosure. "Quiet down," Harper hissed. "We need to stay under the radar." She pushed the heavy stairwell door open and faced the concrete steps. The smell of dust filled the enclosed space. She hoisted the stack of pink boxes higher and took the first step. 1, Harper counted aloud. Her legs burned by the time she reached the second landing. The damp cardboard of the pastry boxes began to slip against her uniform jacket. She paused, adjusting her grip. "Do not drop the glazed donuts," Harper ordered herself. "Donuts!" Captain agreed. She pushed off the cinder-block wall. The worn leather satchel felt like a boulder against her ribs, but she kept moving. She forced her tired muscles up the third flight, her breathing turning ragged. "Next time Gary takes the night shift," Harper grumbled. "Gary! Gary!" "Yes, blame Gary." Harper reached the final landing. A heavy fire door stood closed in front of her, blocking her path to the fourth floor. She let out a long breath, trying to steady her racing heart. She adjusted the heavy brass birdcage in her left hand, preparing to face whatever demanding client required 3 dozen pastries in the middle of a rainstorm. Chapter 2. Harper shoved her shoulder against the heavy fire door. The metal gave way, and she stumbled out of the stairwell into a wide, luxurious hallway. Thick carpet absorbed the thud of her scuffed brown work boots. Dark wood panels lined the walls, illuminated by soft golden fixtures. She set the stack of pink bakery boxes down on the carpet. She placed the brass wire carrier right next to them and rolled her aching shoulders to relieve the tension. "We made it!" Harper sighed. Captain ruffled his bright feathers. "Made it!" Harper opened her battered leather pouch. She pulled out the delivery clipboard. Rainwater had soaked through the top page, turning the ink into a smeared mess. She squinted at the paper, tapping her boot on the floor. "Is this a B or a 4? Harper asked the parrot. She pointed to the faded blue ink. The suite number looked like 404, but the blurred edges made it resemble 40B. "4! 4!" Captain squawked. "You are a terrible reader," Harper replied. She shoved the ruined clipboard back into her leather bag. She picked up the brass birdcage in her left hand and scooped the pink cardboard boxes into her right arm. She walked down the quiet hallway, reading the brass numbers on the doors. She passed room 401, then 402. She stopped in front of a wide double door. The brass plate read 404. This has to be the place. Harper tried to reach the door handle. The tower of pink boxes blocked her arm. The brass cage weighed her other hand down. She could not free a single finger to knock. She lifted her scuffed boot and kicked the wood right below the brass handle. It was a loud, solid kick. The heavy double doors did not just unlatch. They swung wide open, slamming against the interior walls with a violent crash. Harper stepped over the threshold. The suite was enormous. A long mahogany table commanded the center of the room. 12 men stood around the table. Every single one of them froze. The silence hit Harper like a punch to the gut. The air felt thick, charged with a terrifying energy. Harper lowered the pink boxes an inch. She scanned the room. These men did not look like corporate executives. They possessed a feral, dangerous edge. Some wore ripped denim vests. Some had jagged scars across their faces. A man standing at the far end of the table locked eyes with her. He had slicked back blonde hair and wore a brown leather jacket. His face twisted into a snarl. "Who is this?" the blonde man demanded. His voice sounded like grinding stones. Another man stood at the head of the table. He was towering and broad-shouldered, radiating a quiet, lethal authority. He wore a $10,000 dark charcoal tailored suit. He did not yell. He simply shifted his dark gaze to Harper. Panic spiked in Harper's chest. She hid her fear behind a bright, customer service smile. "Did someone order sugar?" Harper asked. The men stared at her. "I have 3 dozen glazed," Harper continued. "Fresh from the fryer." Captain let out a chaotic screech from inside the brass wire carrier. "Quiet, bird," Harper muttered. The blonde man slammed his hands onto the mahogany table. "Is this a joke? Who sent a human spy to our summit?" "Spy?" Harper laughed. "I am a delivery driver. I bring baked goods." The blonde man bared his teeth. "You interrupt a classified meeting. You kick in the door. You bring an animal to listen to our secrets." "The bird goes where I go," Harper defended. The towering man in the dark charcoal suit stepped forward. His movements produced zero sound. He raised his right hand. A thick black leather glove covered his skin. A heavy silver signet ring sat fixed over the dark material, glinting in the light. The blond man snapped his mouth shut and stepped back. "Gareth," the man in the suit said. His deep voice commanded the room. "Stand down." "She heard us, King Maddox," Gareth argued. Maddox kept his dark eyes on Harper. "I dictate the threats in my territory." Harper clutched the pink boxes tighter against her uniform jacket. She wanted to turn around and run back down the stairs, but her scuffed boots remained glued to the thick carpet. She was trapped in a room full of monsters, holding nothing but a parrot in a pile of sugar. Chapter 3. Gareth pointed an accusing finger at Harper. "She is a scout. Her handler sent her to listen to our supply routes. We need to eliminate her." Harper felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Eliminate me?" Harper asked. "I brought pastries, not a weapon. You do not kill the delivery girl over a door kick." "You breached a secure floor," Gareth shot back. "My hands were full!" Harper yelled. She hoisted the brass wire birdcage higher. "Snap the bird's neck too," Gareth sneered. Captain hopped along his wooden perch. "Snap! Snap! Bad word!" Harper stopped tapping her scuffed boot. Her panic transformed into a hot, stubborn anger. She refused to let a man in a brown leather jacket threaten her pet. "If you touch my parrot, I will throw this brass cage at your head," Harper promised. A low, vibrating growl ripped through the suite. It did not sound human. It sounded like a wild beast warning a predator. Harper looked around. The men watched her with cold, calculating eyes. Maddox took another step forward. The dark charcoal fabric of his suit caught the overhead light. He raised his right fist again. The thick leather glove creaked. The heavy silver signet ring looked like a brutal weapon. "Enough," Maddox commanded. Gareth crossed his arms over his chest. "You cannot let her walk out of here, Maddox. She saw our faces. She knows we occupy this territory." "I will handle the intruder," Maddox stated. Maddox shifted his attention to two guards standing near the entrance. "Take her to the holding room." The two men moved toward Harper. "Wait," Harper said. "I have a job to do. Just take the pink bakery boxes, sign the receipt, and pay me the cash. Then I will leave." "Secure her," Maddox ordered. The guards reached for her arms. Harper twisted her torso, dodging their hands. "Do not touch me," Harper warned. Maddox stepped right in front of her. He towered over her frame. He looked down into her eyes. He possessed a sensible, calm face, but she recognized a terrifying dominance hiding just beneath the surface. "Give me the pouch," Maddox said. "It is my leather satchel," Harper corrected. Maddox reached out with his bare left hand. He avoided using his right hand. He unhooked the worn brown bag from her shoulder and pulled it away. "Hey!" Harper protested. "My van keys are inside that." "You will not need keys tonight," Maddox replied. He pointed to a solid side door located near the corner of the suite. "Put her in there. Lock the deadbolt." "You cannot lock me in a closet," Harper argued. "That is kidnapping." "Move," Maddox said. The guards pushed her toward the side door. She stumbled over the thick carpet, but kept a tight grip on the brass carrier and the pink cardboard boxes. The guards shoved her inside the small room. Harper spun around. Maddox stood in the doorway, blocking her exit. "I want a lawyer," Harper demanded, "and I want my brown leather bag back." Maddox pulled the heavy door shut. The deadbolt clicked into place with a loud snap. Harper stood alone. The small room contained 0 windows. Concrete lined the walls. A single metal chair sat in the corner under a harsh light bulb. She set the stack of pink boxes on the floor. She placed the brass cage beside them. She paced the length of the concrete room. "I am trapped in a bunker with a bunch of psychopaths." "We are in jail," Harper announced to the bird. Captain rubbed his beak on the metal bars. "Jail! Jail!" The door handle turned. Harper stopped pacing. She squared her shoulders and put on her bravest face. Maddox walked into the holding room. He tossed her leather satchel onto the concrete floor. He took a slow step forward in his tailored wool jacket. "Who is your handler?" Maddox asked. Gary, Harper snapped. He runs the bakery. Do not lie to me. I am a baker, Harper yelled. The adrenaline crashed, leaving pure panic in its wake. She needed him to back away. She grabbed the top pink box from the stack. She shoved the cardboard carton hard against his chest. Take a donut, Harper ordered. It is a bribe. Eat the sugar and let me go. Maddox stared at the defiant human. He wanted to intimidate her into silence. He leaned forward, bypassing his hands, and bit into the side of the pink bakery box. His teeth tore the cardboard open. A glazed pastry rolled onto the concrete floor. Maddox paused. The scent hit him like a punch to the gut. He smelled sun-warmed apricots and spun sugar. His dark eyes widened. He recognized the undeniable scent of his fated mate. He fought the violent, primal urge to claim her on the spot, forcing his mind to remain sensible. He turned his back, unlocked the door, and walked out, leaving a stunned Harper staring at the ruined box. Chapter 4. The heavy wood door clicked shut behind Maddox. He stood in the luxurious corridor, fighting the primal urge to rip the door off its hinges and claim the woman inside. Her scent lingered in his lungs. He forced his breathing to slow down. He needed facts, not feral instincts. He walked down the hall. A tall guard in a crisp black uniform stood near the stairwell. "Briggs!" Maddox called out. Briggs stepped forward. "King Maddox!" Maddox tossed the battered leather pouch to the guard. He used his bare left hand. "Empty it. Run a full trace on the human." Briggs caught the bag. He unbuckled the flap and pulled out a plastic ID card. "Harper Hayes. Address is on the east side. Check the pack registries. Check the rogue databases." Briggs pulled out a secure tablet from his jacket. He tapped the screen. Seconds ticked by. "She possesses 0 criminal record," Briggs reported. "No pack ties, no rogue connections. She works 50 hours a week at a corner bakery. She has a mountain of student debt and a flyer for a stray dog rescue." Maddox stared at the heavy wooden door down the hall. "Gareth believes she is an assassin." "Gareth is paranoid," Briggs said. "She is clean." "Gareth will use her as an excuse to challenge my territory. If she walks out the front entrance, his fighters will snatch her." "What are your orders?" "Prepare the top floor. I am moving her to the penthouse." Maddox snatched the hide pouch back from Briggs. He hooked the strap over his left shoulder. He turned and walked back toward the concrete holding room. A different man stood blocking the holding room door. He wore a ripped denim vest. He possessed a jagged scar across his chin. He belonged to Gareth's faction. "Move away from the door, Rhett," Maddox ordered. Rhett crossed his arms. "My alpha demands the spy. Gareth wants 5 minutes alone with her." "I handle the interrogations in this hotel," Maddox stated. Rhett sneered, showing his teeth. "You show weakness, King. You defend a human over your own kind." Maddox did not raise his voice. He stepped into Rhett's personal space. He let his dominant aura flood the corridor. The air grew heavy. "Step aside," Maddox warned, "or I will remove your legs." Rhett swallowed hard. The bravado melted under the crushing weight of the king's presence. He took a step back, sliding along the dark wood panels. Maddox reached out with his bare hand and turned the deadbolt. The lock snapped open. He pushed the heavy door inward. Harper stood in the center of the concrete space. She held the brass wire carrier in her left hand. She balanced the stack of pristine pastry cartons against her chest with her right arm. The ruined box with the bite mark sat discarded on the floor, one glazed pastry resting beside it. "Did you find my lawyer?" Harper asked. Maddox held out her brown leather bag. "Take your pouch. We are leaving this room." Harper grabbed the strap. "Thank you. Point me to the exit stairs. I need to return these donuts to Gary." "You are not returning to the bakery." Harper tightened her grip on the brass cage. "Watch me." She marched forward. Maddox did not block her path. He let her step out of the concrete room and into the carpeted corridor. Rhett pushed off the wall. He dragged his eyes up and down Harper's faded indigo jacket. "Where do you think you are going, sweetmeat?" Rhett asked. Harper froze. Do not call me meat. Rhett moved with unnatural speed. He lunged forward and grabbed Harper's shoulder. His fingers dug into her uniform. Gareth wants a taste, Rhett snarled. Harper gasped, trying to twist away. Maddox struck without warning. He swung his right arm in a brutal arc. The thick black leather glove smashed into Rhett's jaw. The heavy silver signet ring connected with bone. A loud crack echoed in the hall. Rhett flew backward. He hit the wall and slid to the carpet. A raw, dark burn mark seared across his cheek where the toxic metal made contact. The silver acted like acid on his skin. Do not touch her, Maddox commanded. Rhett touched his burned face. His eyes shifted from brown to a glowing, unnatural yellow. A deep rumble vibrated in his chest. His temper snapped. Harper watched in horror. Rhett's body contorted. His bones cracked. The ripped denim vest tore into shreds. Coarse gray fur erupted from his skin. His face elongated into a terrifying snout. Within 3 seconds, a giant, snarling beast stood in the hallway. Harper's hands went numb. The stack of pink boxes slipped from her grip. They hit the floor. The cardboard busted open. 35 glazed donuts scattered across the thick carpet. The gray wolf lunged for her throat. Maddox intercepted the animal mid-air. He grabbed the wolf by the neck with both hands. His dark charcoal suit strained against the violent movement. He slammed the beast onto the floor, pinning the creature down. Submit! Maddox roared. The wolf snapped its jaws. Maddox pressed his silver-ringed fist near the wolf's eye. The heat of the poison radiated through the leather. The wolf whimpered, tucking its tail, and exposed its neck in total submission. Get out of my sight, Maddox ordered. The beast scrambled to its paws and sprinted down the corridor, disappearing around the corner. Chapter 5. Harper stood frozen against the corridor wall. 35 crushed glazed donuts dotted the carpet around her scuffed brown work boots. Maddox brushed a stray gray hair off his dark charcoal-tailored suit. He turned his attention back to Harper. Stay away from me, Harper rasped. She pressed her spine flat against the dark wood panels. Her chest rose and fell in jagged, shallow gasps. She clutched the brass wire travel cage tight against her ribs. I need you to breathe, Maddox instructed. Breathe? Harper let out a wild, breathless laugh. A man just turned into a giant, angry dog in the middle of a hallway. He ripped his own denim vest into shreds. He is a wolf, Maddox corrected. I do not care about his breed, Harper yelled. She pointed a shaking finger down the corridor. His bones cracked. He grew fur. What is wrong with him? Does he carry rabies? He is a shifter, Maddox said. His voice remained a calm, steady anchor in the chaotic space. He lost control of his temper. He let his beast take over. Harper stared at the towering man. She looked at his broad shoulders. She searched his sensible, composed face. Are you one of them? Harper asked. Maddox refused to lie. He respected her courage too much to treat her like a fool. Yes, Maddox answered. Harper squeezed her eyes shut. She shook her head side to side. This is a prank, Harper declared. Gary set this up. He hired special effects actors. He knows I hate midnight deliveries. This is a reality show. This is reality, Harper. She opened her eyes. She stared at the smashed sugar pastries ruining the expensive carpet. The initial blind panic began to curdle into a fierce, sharp curiosity. She needed to understand the impossible rules of this hidden world. If you are a wolf, Harper said, her voice shaking less now, why did you not turn into an animal to fight him? I do not lose control, Maddox stated. Harper looked at his right hand. She pointed at the black leather. The ring, Harper observed. You hit him with the heavy metal band. It burned his face. It looked like battery acid. Silver is toxic to our kind, Maddox explained. It burns the skin. It poisons the bloodstream. So you wear poison on your own hand? I wear it as a weapon. I keep the thick leather barrier between the toxic metal and my skin. It holds my enemies accountable. That is insane, Harper shot back. You could slip. You could burn yourself. I do not slip. Captain shifted on his small wooden perch inside the brass carrier. Slip! Slip! Maddox shot a dark glare at the macaw. Control your bird. He is traumatized, Harper defended the parrot. She stepped over a squashed donut. So, you are wolves. The blonde guy in the leather jacket in the suite is a wolf. Everyone around that mahogany table is a wolf. Yes, they are rival faction leaders. I am the king. Harper let out a loud snort. The sound echoed in the quiet hall. The king? Harper repeated. Of the dogs? Maddox squared his jaw. A flash of annoyance tightened the lines around his dark eyes. Do not test my patience, human. My name is Harper, and you owe me for the ruined delivery. She gestured to the messy floor. Gary is going to take this out of my paycheck. Maddox reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. He pulled out a sleek money clip. He peeled off 5 crisp $100 bills. He held the cash out to her. Will this cover the sugar? Maddox asked. Harper looked at the money. She looked at the terrifying king standing in the corridor. She snatched the bills from his grip. She shoved the cash deep into her faded indigo uniform pocket. Yes, Harper said. Now point me to the exit stairwell. You are not leaving, Maddox said. Garrett's fighters know your scent now. They will hunt you the second you step outside the lobby. I will take my chances in my van. You will die, Maddox promised. He pointed down the opposite end of the hallway toward a set of steel doors. You are coming with me to the penthouse, Maddox ordered. You will stay under my protection until I neutralize the threat. Walk. Harper tapped her scuffed boot. She weighed her options. She hated taking orders, but she preferred living over dying in an alley. Fine, Harper agreed. Lead the way, Your Highness. Chapter 6. Maddox led Harper past the ruined pastry boxes and down the long corridor. They approached a separate set of elevators. Solid steel replaced the standard brass finish. A glowing keypad sat mounted on the wall. A tall guard stood near the keypad. He wore a crisp black uniform. Briggs, Maddox greeted the guard. Clear the car. Done, Briggs replied. The guard pressed a keycard against the scanner. A green light flashed. The steel doors slid open without a sound. Harper stepped into the elevator. Polished mirrors lined the walls. Briggs stepped in behind her. Maddox entered last. His broad frame took up most of the available space in the small car. Briggs pressed the highest button on the panel. The car shot upward. Harper felt her stomach drop. Her ears popped from the sudden change in altitude. She clutched the brass wire birdcage in one hand and her worn brown leather satchel in the other. Stop hovering over me, Harper told Maddox. Maddox looked down at her. I am standing in the only open space. You are looming. It is annoying. Briggs let out a short snort of laughter. Maddox shot the guard a sharp look. Briggs cleared his throat and stared up at the ceiling panels. I do not loom, Maddox stated. You give orders, Harper argued. You tell me to walk. You tell me to stay. I am a person, not one of your loyal soldiers. I speak with clarity to avoid confusion, Maddox countered. You speak like a dictator. Captain shuffled on his wooden perch. Dictator! Dictator! Maddox glared at the macaw. I am going to roast that animal. Do not threaten my family, Harper warned. She held the brass cage closer to her chest. The elevator slowed to a halt. The steel doors parted. Harper stepped out and stopped in her tracks. The penthouse took up the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the city skyline. Rain lashed against the thick glass. The floors featured dark hardwood, polished to a mirror shine. A sleek, modern kitchen sat to the left. A huge seating area with white couches filled the center of the room. Everything looked sharp, clean, and devoid of warmth. It looked like a luxury showroom, not a home. This is a fortress, Harper noted. The glass is bulletproof, Maddox explained. He walked past her into the living space. The doors require retinal scans. The security system runs $5 million a year. Nobody enters this floor without my authorization. Harper set the birdcage down on a giant marble kitchen island. She dropped her battered hide pouch onto a tall bar stool. "Do you actually live here?" Harper asked. She ran a hand along the cold marble counter. "I sleep here," Maddox answered. "Where is your stuff? There are no pictures, no books, no clutter." "Clutter is a distraction. I require efficiency." Harper walked over to the nearest window. She looked down at the streetlights shining through the rain. She felt trapped. The luxury did not hide the fact that she could not leave the premises. "Sit down," Maddox commanded. He pointed to one of the white couches. Harper turned around. She planted her feet. "No," Harper said. Maddox stopped moving. He tilted his head. "I told you to sit. You had a shock. You need to rest your legs." "And I told you to stop giving me orders. I will stand if I want to stand." Maddox let out a slow, steady breath. His patience wore thin. He was the king. When he spoke, hundreds of wolves fell to their knees in submission. Yet this tiny human in a faded work jacket refused to follow a simple instruction. "I am trying to keep you safe," Maddox said. "You are trying to control the situation," Harper shot back. "There is a difference." Briggs stepped out of the elevator. He carried a silver tray with a pitcher of water and 3 glasses. He paused, watching the standoff. "Put the tray on the counter," Maddox told the guard. "Then leave us." Briggs set the tray down and retreated to the elevator. The doors slid shut, leaving Harper alone with the Alpha. "You can stand all night," Maddox said, "but you are not leaving this suite." Harper crossed her arms over her chest. She stared him down. She refused to let him see her underlying fear. She planned to fight him on every single rule. Chapter 7. Harper stayed on her feet. Maddox remained near the center of the room. The silence stretched between them, thick with unresolved tension. She let her eyes wander away from his face. She looked at his hands. His left hand hung relaxed by his side. His right hand remained clenched in a fist, encased in the dark leather barrier. The heavy carved jewelry sat securely over his knuckle. "You said you use that to mark traitors," Harper said. She nodded toward his right hand. Maddox looked down at his own fist. "I do." "You said silver stops your healing. It leaves a permanent scar." "Yes." Harper took a step toward him. "Why do you have to be the one to do it?" Maddox lifted his gaze. He seemed surprised by the question. "Why not use a weapon?" Harper continued. "Why not hire someone else to punish the bad guys? You are the king. You could pay a guy to swing a silver bat. Why wear poison on your own body?" Maddox unbuttoned his suit jacket. He moved with deliberate care. "A leader who delegates punishment loses the respect of his people," Maddox explained. "If I sentence a wolf to bear a scar, I must deliver the strike myself. I must look them in the eye." "But what if the leather tears?" Harper asked. "Then I burn." "That is a stupid risk." "It is a necessary burden," Maddox countered. "The toxic metal band grounds me. It reminds me of the pain I have the power to inflict. A king who forgets the weight of his own strength becomes a tyrant." Harper studied his face. She expected to see a ruthless brute. Instead, she saw a man carrying a heavy load of responsibility. He did not hurt people for fun. He enforced rules to keep his kind safe. He held himself accountable. "That wolf in the hallway," Harper said, her voice softer now. "He lost his mind. He just snapped." "He allowed his anger to override his logic," Maddox said. "Does that happen to you?" Maddox tensed. A shadow passed over his dark eyes. "If my emotions break, my beast takes over," Maddox admitted. "If a severe threat presents itself, my instincts take control. I become a weapon." Harper pointed at the ring again. "So the metal keeps you human." "It reminds me of the line between justice and slaughter," Maddox said. He walked over to the marble island. He poured a glass of water from the pitcher Briggs left behind. He pushed the glass across the smooth stone toward her. "Drink," Maddox offered. Harper walked to the counter. She picked up the glass. Her hand shook just a fraction. She took a sip. The cool water helped clear the dry panic in her throat. "Thank you," Harper muttered. She set the glass down. She reached out with her index finger. She touched the edge of the dark leather barrier covering his wrist. Maddox froze. He stared at her hand. Nobody touched him without permission. Nobody dared to reach for his weapon hand. Harper traced the thick stitching on the leather. "You do not have to isolate yourself to be a good king," Harper said. "You have a giant, empty house. You have 0 friends. You just have guards and rules." Maddox pulled his hand back, breaking the contact. The brief touch sent a jolt of heat straight up his arm. "My isolation protects the pack," Maddox said. "It just makes you lonely," Harper replied. Captain climbed up the side of his wire travel box. He hooked his beak on the brass bars. "Lonely! Lonely!" Maddox shot a glare at the macaw. "I am going to open the window and let him fly into the storm." "You will do no such thing," Harper scolded. Maddox watched her defend the annoying creature. He felt a strange tightening in his chest. He spent his life pushing people away to maintain his iron control, yet the stubborn baker refused to be pushed away. Chapter 8. The elevator chimed. The steel doors opened. Briggs pushed a metal serving cart into the penthouse. The rich smell of roasted garlic and seared meat filled the cold, modern room. "Dinner," Briggs announced. He wheeled the cart toward the kitchen island. Harper felt her stomach rumble. She had not eaten since her lunch break at the bakery 9 hours ago. Briggs transferred 2 heavy porcelain plates onto the marble counter. Each plate held a thick cut of steak, roasted potatoes, and steamed vegetables. A basket of warm bread sat in the center. "Will you require anything else, King Maddox?" Briggs asked. "No. Secure the perimeter downstairs," Maddox commanded. Briggs bowed his head and left the room. Harper did not wait for an invitation. She climbed onto a tall bar stool. She grabbed a fork and knife. She cut a large piece of steak and shoved it into her mouth. The flavor exploded on her tongue. It tasted better than any meal she could afford on a delivery driver's salary. Maddox stood on the opposite side of the island. He did not sit. He did not touch his silverware. He just watched her eat. "Are you going to stare at me the whole time?" Harper asked around a mouthful of potatoes. "Chew your food," Maddox said. "You will choke." "I am burning calories," Harper argued. "Running from monsters requires energy." She reached into the basket. She pulled out a soft piece of warm bread. She tore off a chunk and pushed it through the bars of the brass bird cage. Captain snatched the bread with his beak. He let out a happy chirp. Maddox frowned. He placed his hands flat on the marble counter. "Do not feed the animal at the dinner table," Maddox instructed. Harper tore off another piece of bread. She fed it to the bird again. "He is captain," Harper said. "He eats when I eat." "It is unsanitary." "He is cleaner than the wolf who ripped his own clothes off in your hallway," Harper shot back. Maddox narrowed his eyes. "I establish the rules in this territory. You will follow them." "You establish rules for your soldiers," Harper corrected. She pointed her fork at his chest. "I do not work for you. I am a hostage. Hostages do not have to learn table manners." Captain swallowed his bread. He flapped his wings inside the cage. "Bullshit," Captain squawked aloud. The curse word echoed off the floor-to-ceiling windows. Harper gasped. She clamped a hand over her mouth to stop a laugh. She looked at Maddox, expecting him to explode with dominant anger. She expected him to smash the table. Maddox stared at the blue and gold macaw. He looked at the bird's missing tail feather. He looked back at Harper, who was trying very hard to look serious. The corner of Maddox's mouth twitched. He tried to suppress it, but he failed. A genuine, bright smile broke across his face. It erased the hard lines around his eyes. It made him look younger, less terrifying, and strikingly handsome. Harper let her hand drop. She stared at him. The smile changed his entire presence. "The bird has a terrible attitude," Maddox noted. His voice lost its harsh edge. "He learns from his surroundings," Harper defended. Maddox pulled a bar stool out. He sat down across from her. He picked up his own fork. "Eat your food, Harper," Maddox said. This time, it did not sound like a command. It sounded like an invitation. Maybe he is not a complete monster after all, Harper thought. Harper picked up her knife. The heavy tension in the room finally cracked. They sat in the quiet fortress, high above the rainy city. She ate her steak, occasionally sneaking another piece of bread to the swearing parrot, while the terrifying Alpha King finished his meal in peace. Chapter 9. Harper pushed her empty plate across the smooth marble kitchen island. She wiped her mouth with a cloth napkin and tossed it next to her fork. The quiet hum of the climate control system filled the giant, sterile room. Maddox stood on the opposite side of the counter. He watched her every move without saying a word. Harper slid off the tall bar stool. Her scuffed brown work boots hit the hardwood floor with a soft thud. She left her battered leather satchel resting on the seat. She picked up the brass wire carrier holding her parrot and walked away from the kitchen area. "Where are you going?" Maddox asked. "I am exploring my luxury prison," Harper stated. She marched past the white couches. She approached the steel elevator doors at the far end of the living space. A glowing keypad sat mounted on the wall next to the metal frame. Harper reached out and pressed the call button. Nothing happened. The button did not light up. "You need a programmed keycard," Maddox said. His deep voice carried across the open room. "And a registered fingerprint." Harper ignored him. She slapped her palm against the steel doors. They felt cold and unyielding. She turned her back on the elevator and scanned the walls. She spotted a heavy wooden door near the corner of the room. A red exit sign glowed above the frame. She walked over to the fire exit. She grabbed the brass handle and pulled. The door refused to budge. "Retinal scanner," Maddox offered. He walked out of the kitchen and followed her into the living area. "The fire stairs lock from this side. Nobody leaves without my eyes approving the exit." Harper dropped her hand from the door handle. She spun around to face him. "This is ridiculous," Harper said. "You cannot keep me locked inside a tower. I have a job. I have rent to pay. I have a life outside this hotel." "Your life is currently a target," Maddox replied. He closed the distance between them, stopping a few feet away. "Gareth's fighters will wait in the alleys near your apartment. They will grab you the moment you step out of your faded indigo van." "Then I will stay at a cheap motel," Harper argued. "I will sleep in the back of my delivery vehicle. I will drive to another state." "A rival pack tracks scents across state lines in a matter of hours," Maddox countered. "They will find you before morning." Harper gripped the handle of the metal avian transport. Her knuckles turned white. She hated the logic in his words. She hated the feeling of confinement. She took a step toward him, closing the gap. She tilted her chin up to look him in the eye. "I am not one of your subjects," Harper warned. "I do not take orders from a man wearing a ridiculously expensive dark charcoal suit who thinks he owns the city." Maddox looked down at her. He noticed the fire in her eyes. Most humans cowered in his presence. Most wolves submitted to his aura. This stubborn baker stepped closer to the danger instead of running from it. "You will take my orders when they keep you breathing," Maddox stated. He took a step forward. Harper refused to step back. The space between them vanished. She stood mere inches from his chest. The air around them grew thick and charged. Harper inhaled. His scent smelled like crushed cedar wood and a coming rainstorm. It hit her system like a runaway train. Her heart kicked against her ribs. The fear washed away, replaced by a sudden, intense heat spreading through her chest. Maddox stared at her lips. He felt the mate bond pulling at his instincts. His right hand clenched into a fist. The thick black leather glove creaked under the strain. The heavy silver signet ring rubbed against the leather barrier. He wanted to reach out. He wanted to claim her right there against the locked fire door. "You need to back up," Harper whispered. Her voice lost its sharp edge. "You stepped into my space," Maddox pointed out. His voice dropped an octave. It sounded rough and dangerous. "I am standing my ground." "Your ground belongs to me." If I stay this close to him, I might actually lose my mind, Harper thought. Harper opened her mouth to argue, but the words evaporated. The physical tension between them sparked like a live wire. Maddox leaned down, his dark eyes locked onto hers. He fought a losing battle with his own primal nature. Before he could bridge the final inch, Captain let out a loud, chaotic squawk from inside the brass wire carrier. "Kiss! Kiss!" the parrot yelled. The moment shattered. Harper jumped back, her face burning hot. Maddox stiffened. He turned his head away, his jaw clenched tight. Chapter 10. Harper cleared her throat. She took another step away from Maddox, putting a safe distance between them. Her palms felt clammy against the handle of the brass wire carrier. "My bird talks too much," Harper said. Maddox did not answer. He did not look at her or the parrot. His posture went rigid. He stood frozen near the locked fire door. His head snapped toward the floor-to-ceiling windows lining the far wall of the penthouse. "What is wrong?" Harper asked. Maddox flared his nostrils. He took a slow breath through his nose. The lines of his face hardened into stone. "Do you smell smoke?" Harper asked. She sniffed the air. "Intruder," Maddox stated. The single word sent a fresh wave of panic through Harper's veins. She looked around the expansive, empty living room. She looked at the locked steel elevator doors. "Where?" Harper demanded. "You said this floor requires keycards and eye scanners. You called it a fortress." "Someone scaled the outside architecture," Maddox said. His dark eyes tracked the shadows out on the private, rain-slicked terrace. "Gareth sent a rat. He wants to test the perimeter glass." Harper backed away from the windows. "Can they break the glass?" "No," Maddox said, "but I refuse to let a rival crawl on my property." He turned toward her. He reached out with his bare left hand and grabbed her upper arm. His grip felt firm, but careful not to bruise her skin. He marched her toward a hallway branching off the main living area. "Hey!" Harper yelled, stumbling over her scuffed brown work boots. "Let go of me!" "I am securing you," Maddox said. "I can walk by myself." Maddox ignored her protests. He dragged her down the hall and stopped in front of a solid oak door. He twisted the brass knob and pushed the door open. He ushered her inside the dark room. "Stay in here," Maddox ordered. Harper planted her feet just inside the doorway. She held the brass cage tight against her hip. "I refuse to hide in a closet while you fight a monster on the balcony," Harper argued. "I can help." Maddox let out a harsh breath. "You are a baker, Harper. You bring sugar to meetings. You do not fight wolves." "I have a good throwing arm," Harper shot back. "I can hit him with a heavy object." "If a shifter breaches this floor, he will tear you apart before you can blink," Maddox said. The dominant anger bled into his tone, laced with a fierce need to protect her. "You will stay in this room. You will not open the door." "Stop treating me like a helpless child." "I treat you like a human," Maddox corrected, "because that is what you are. My world is lethal. You do not belong in the crossfire." The blunt truth of his words stung. Harper hated the fact that he was right. She possessed no fangs, no unnatural strength, and no toxic metal weapons. She was just a girl wearing a faded indigo jacket. Maddox stepped back into the hallway. "Keep the bird quiet," Maddox instructed. Before Harper could deliver a snappy comeback, Maddox pulled the solid oak door shut. The heavy wood blocked out the light from the corridor. A loud click echoed through the space as Maddox engaged the exterior lock. Harper stood alone in the dark. "Hey!" Harper shouted. She kicked the bottom of the oak door with her scuffed footwear. "You cannot lock me in another room." No response came from the other side. Maddox was gone. Harper let out a frustrated growl. She reached out and felt along the wall until her fingers brushed a light switch. She flipped it up. Soft, golden light flooded the space. She stood inside the master bedroom. A giant, king-sized bed dominated the center of the floor, covered in dark gray sheets. Heavy velvet curtains hid the windows. A sleek wooden nightstand sat on each side of the mattress. Captain hopped on his wooden perch inside the brass enclosure. "Fragile!" Captain squawked. "Fragile!" "I am not fragile," Harper muttered to the bird. I survive 50-hour work weeks and angry landlords. I can survive a dogfight. She walked over to the edge of the large bed and set the metal avian transport on the mattress. She listened closely, straining to hear any sounds of a struggle coming from the living room. The thick walls absorbed all noise. The silence left her imagination to run wild. I refuse to be a sitting duck in a monster turf war, Harper decided. She walked over to the sleek wooden nightstand. A tall brass lamp rested on the flat surface. The base looked thick and heavy. Harper reached down and yanked the power cord out of the wall outlet. She set the base on the mattress next to the birdcage. She used both hands to unscrew the decorative knob at the top. She pulled the wide fabric shade off and tossed it onto the floor. Next, she twisted the light bulb counterclockwise. The bulb popped free. She placed it on the nightstand so it would not shatter. Harper picked up the stripped-down brass lamp base. She gripped the thin neck with both hands like a baseball bat. She gave it a practice swing. The heavy metal bottom sliced through the air with a satisfying swoosh. It was not a silver weapon, but a solid block of brass to the skull would definitely cause a concussion. She walked back to the solid oak door, raised the heavy brass base over her shoulder, and waited for the lock to click. Chapter 11. Harper braced her back leg. She shifted her weight, preparing to unleash all her pent-up fear and frustration on whoever stepped into the bedroom. A shadow passed under the crack of the door. A key slid into the lock on the other side. The metal mechanism clicked. The brass knob began to turn. The heavy oak door swung inward. A tall figure crossed the threshold, stepping into the golden light of the bedroom. Harper swung the heavy brass lamp base with all her might. The makeshift metal weapon arched through the air, aiming straight for the intruder's head. Maddox stepped into the room. He did not flinch. He did not duck. He simply raised his bare left hand and caught the thick metal base in midair. The brass slapped against his palm with a loud smack. Harper gasped and tried to yank the lamp back. Maddox held the metal firm. He possessed the strength of a freight train. The weapon did not budge an inch. Maddox looked at the stripped-down lamp in his grip. He followed the metal stem down to Harper's white-knuckled hands. He looked at the discarded fabric shade resting on the carpet. Finally, his dark eyes met her panicked gaze. "Are you trying to brain me with my own decor?" Maddox asked. Harper let go of the brass neck. She took a step back, her chest heaving. "I did not know it was you," Harper defended. "You did not knock." Maddox lowered the heavy base. "I unlocked the door to my own bedroom. I did not expect an ambush." "You locked me in a box again," Harper yelled. She pointed a finger at his chest. "I told you I hate feeling trapped. I needed a way to defend myself." Maddox walked over to the nightstand. He set the ruined lamp down on the sleek wood. He turned back to face her. His luxurious, dark charcoal suit looked perfect. He did not have a single hair out of place. "The scout is gone," Maddox reported. He fled before he could breach the glass. He scurried back down the architecture like a coward. "Did he see you?" Harper asked. "He saw me standing on the terrace," Maddox said. "He knows the perimeter is secure. He will report back to Gareth." Harper crossed her arms over her faded indigo uniform. She felt a wave of relief wash over her, but the stubborn anger remained. "I am glad you chased off the rat," Harper said. "Now retrieve my brown leather satchel from the kitchen. I am leaving." Maddox shook his head. The threat escalated. "Gareth knows you are on this floor now. He will watch the lobby exits. You are staying here." "I refuse to spend the rest of my life locked in your bedroom." "You have access to the entire penthouse," Maddox corrected, "but you will not leave this floor. A single bite from a rival wolf will end your life. I will not allow that to happen." "I am not your responsibility," Harper argued. "I am just a delivery driver." "You are my guest," Maddox said. The lie tasted like ash, but he kept the mate bond hidden. He needed her to trust him first. "And I protect the people in my territory." Harper stared at the dark leather covering his right fist. She remembered the raw burn on the rogue wolf's face. She knew Maddox possessed the power to keep her safe, but yielding to his rules felt like surrendering her freedom. "If I stay, I make the rules," Harper demanded. Maddox crossed his arms. The Alpha King looked amused. "Name your terms." "Number 1, Harper said, holding up a finger. "You stop locking doors from the outside. If I want to walk into the kitchen, I walk into the kitchen." "Agreed," Maddox said. "Number 2, you dig my van keys out of my leather pouch and hand them to me. I want to know I have a way out if I choose to run." "Agreed." Harper lowered her hand. "He surrenders too easily," Harper thought. "And number 3, Maddox interrupted. His voice carried a tone of unwavering authority. "I assign a permanent detail to your location. You will never be left unguarded." "I do not need babysitters," Harper protested. Maddox stepped back into the hallway. He gestured with his bare hand. 2 towering men wearing crisp black suits walked into view. They looked like professional linebackers. They stood at attention, their eyes fixed forward. "This is Briggs and Holt," Maddox introduced the guards. "They are elite fighters. They will stand outside this bedroom door every night. They will follow you into the living room every day." Harper groaned. She looked at the giant men blocking her exit. "They look like they eat raw meat for breakfast," Harper complained. "They eat whatever the kitchen staff cooks," Maddox replied. He pulled the solid oak door toward him. "Get some sleep, Harper. The sun comes up in 3 hours." Before she could argue against the guards, Maddox shut the heavy door. This time, Harper did not hear the lock click. She was free to open it, but she knew Briggs and Holt stood right on the other side, forming an unbreakable wall between her and the outside world. Chapter 12. Harper sat on the edge of the king-sized bed. She glared at the closed oak door. The penthouse felt too quiet. She swung her scuffed brown work boots back and forth, tapping her heels against the bed frame. She turned her attention to the brass wire travel cage. Captain perched on his wooden swing, tucking his head under his wing to sleep. "Wake up, bird," Harper whispered. "We need to plan an escape route." Captain ignored her. Harper stood up and smoothed out the wrinkles in her faded indigo jacket. She marched toward the solid oak door. She grabbed the brass knob and yanked it open. Briggs and Holt stood in the hallway. They did not flinch. They stared straight ahead, acting like twin statues in crisp black suits. "Do you guys ever blink?" Harper asked. Holt shifted his gaze down to her. He possessed sharp features and cold eyes. "We blink when it is safe to blink, Miss Hayes." "It is Harper, just Harper." "Understood, Miss Harper," Briggs chimed in. Harper crossed her arms. "Where did Maddox go?" "King Maddox is securing the lower levels," Holt answered. "He is inspecting the perimeter breaches." "So he left me trapped up here with his henchmen." "We are protectors," Briggs corrected, "not henchmen." Harper leaned against the doorframe. She intended to pester them until they gave her more information about Gareth and the rival packs. She opened her mouth to ask her first question. A loud, mechanical clunk echoed through the walls. The soft, golden lights in the hallway vanished. The lamps inside the master bedroom died. Total darkness swallowed the penthouse in a fraction of a second. Harper gasped and took a step back. "Stay put," Holt barked. His voice lost its polite tone. Emergency backup lights flickered to life along the baseboards. They cast an eerie, blood-red glow across the corridor. The red light illuminated the harsh angles of the guards' faces. "What happened to the power?" Harper demanded. "The main grid just went offline," Briggs said. He reached inside his suit jacket. "The backup generators should kick in within 10 seconds. Harper counted the seconds in her head. 10 seconds passed. 20 seconds passed. The main lights remained dead. The climate control system hummed to a halt. The silence felt suffocating. "They cut the generator lines," Holt stated. He pulled a heavy flashlight from his belt. "This is a coordinated strike." Captain let out a piercing screech from the bedroom. "Strike! Strike!" Harper spun around and rushed back to the king-sized bed. She grabbed the heavy brass lamp base from the nightstand. She gripped the cold metal stem with both hands. Her knuckles ached from the tight hold. "Get away from the door, Miss Harper," Briggs ordered. He stepped into the bedroom, pushing her further back into the shadows. "Are they coming up here?" Harper asked. Her voice shook. "The elevators are dead," Holt said. He stood in the doorway, staring down the long, red-lit hallway. "They have to take the stairs. The fire doors are locked." A thunderous crash echoed from the living room. The sound of splintering wood ripped through the quiet penthouse. "They breached the fire door," Briggs announced. The heavy thud of boots and the sharp clicking of claws hitting the polished hardwood floor followed the crash. Multiple targets moved into the open space. Low, guttural growls filled the air. "How many?" Holt asked. Briggs flared his nostrils, taking a deep breath of the stale air. "I count 10, maybe 12. They smell like wet dog and cheap leather." Harper stood frozen near the mattress. She clutched the brass weapon to her chest. She remembered Maddox's warning. "If a shifter breaches this floor, he will tear you apart before you can blink." "Hold the line," Holt commanded. The two guards stood shoulder to shoulder in the bedroom doorway, blocking the entrance with their bodies. The sounds of destruction grew louder. Furniture smashed against the walls. The rival wolves tore through the luxury showroom, searching for the prize. Harper squeezed her eyes shut. She prayed the terrifying Alpha King in the dark charcoal suit would return before the monsters found her. Chapter 13. The red emergency backup lights cast long, distorted shadows across the walls of the master bedroom. Harper stood near the edge of the king-sized mattress, gripping the dismantled brass lamp stem with both hands. Her knuckles ached from the intense pressure. She raised the heavy metal base over her shoulder, treating it like a baseball bat. A cacophony of destruction echoed from the living room. Rival wolves tore through Maddox's pristine luxury fortress. The sounds of shattering glass and splintering wood vibrated through the floorboards. "They are destroying the furniture," Harper observed, trying to keep her voice steady. Briggs did not look back. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Holt in the open doorway, blocking the corridor. "Furniture is replaceable," Briggs stated. "You stay behind us. Miss Harper, do not step into the hallway." "I have zero intentions of joining a dogfight," Harper promised. "I am going to die in a billionaire's bedroom," Harper thought. The heavy thud of boots morphed into the sharp clicking of animal claws. The intruders abandoned their human forms. A chorus of guttural snarls filled the air, thick with the scent of wet fur and copper. "Here they come," Holt warned. A hulking brown wolf rounded the corner of the corridor. It charged straight for the bedroom, teeth bared. Briggs stepped forward to meet the threat. He did not bother reaching for a weapon. Instead, he dropped to a crouch. The horrific sound of snapping bones echoed over the snarling. His crisp black suit ripped apart at the seams. Coarse, dark fur erupted from his skin. Within 3 seconds, a giant black wolf stood in his place. Holt followed suit, shifting into an imposing gray beast. The twin guards formed an impenetrable wall of muscle and teeth in the doorway. The first rival wolf leaped. Briggs caught the enemy mid-air, snapping his jaws around the intruder's throat. They crashed into the corridor wall with a bone-jarring thud. Holt lunged at a second attacker, tearing into the rival's shoulder. Harper watched the brutal clash from the safety of the shadows. The sheer violence of the shifter world played out right in front of her. Blood splattered against the dark wood panels of the hallway. The red emergency lights gave the scene a nightmare quality. Captain hopped on his wooden perch inside the brass wire carrier. "Bite!" Captain squawked. "Bite!" "Shut up, Captain," Harper hissed. She kept her eyes glued to the doorway. The two elite guards fought with lethal precision. They pushed the front line out of the bedroom and back into the hall, ripping through the initial wave of attackers. But Gareth sent an entire strike team. There were too many. A third rival wolf, this one covered in mangy, rust-colored fur, spotted an opening. It darted under Holt's heavy paws and scrambled past the doorway. The beast entered the master bedroom. Harper stopped breathing. The rust-colored wolf locked its glowing yellow eyes on her. It ignored the guards. It ignored the swearing parrot. It focused solely on the human holding the brass stalk. The beast stalked forward. Saliva dripped from its exposed fangs. It cornered her against the edge of the mattress. "Stay back," Harper ordered. She swung the heavy metal base through the air to create a boundary. "I have a blunt object, and I know how to use it." The wolf snarled, crouching low to the carpet. It bunched its hind legs, preparing to strike. Harper did not wait for the attack. She took a step forward, pivoting on her scuffed brown work boot. She swung the brass stem with every ounce of strength in her arms. The heavy metal bottom connected with the wolf's snout. A loud crack echoed in the room. The beast yelped and staggered to the side. It shook its head, spraying blood across the floor. The hit did not stop the monster. It only made the creature furious. The wolf recovered its footing and lunged straight for her throat. Chapter 14. The rust-colored wolf snapped its jaws, aiming for Harper's neck. She raised the brass stem to block the bite, but the sheer force of the animal knocked her backward. She hit the king-sized mattress, the heavy metal weapon slipping from her sweaty palms. Before the beast could sink its teeth into her skin, a roar shook the foundation of the hotel. It sounded like rolling thunder trapped inside the concrete walls. King Maddox tore through the corridor. He did not bother navigating around the pack of fighting wolves. He trampled right over them. He reached the bedroom doorway and grabbed the shattered remains of the oak doorframe. He ripped the wood from the hinges and tossed it aside. Maddox spotted the rust-colored wolf standing over Harper. His ironclad control shattered. The transition hit him like a lightning strike. He did not shift into a four-legged animal. He dropped into the ultimate state of feral bloodlust. His $10,000 dark charcoal-tailored suit strained and ripped as his muscles expanded to impossible proportions. His eyes shifted from dark brown to a burning, unnatural gold. Elongated fangs pushed past his lips. Sharp claws tore through his pristine manicure. He is not just a king, he is a force of nature, Harper thought. Maddox crossed the bedroom in a single blur of motion. He grabbed the rust-colored wolf by the spine with his bare left hand. He hoisted the heavy beast into the air with zero effort. The animal whined, kicking its paws in a desperate bid for freedom. Maddox threw the beast across the room. The wolf smashed into the heavy velvet curtains, shattering the bulletproof glass behind the fabric. Spiderwebs of cracks raced across the window pane. The animal slumped to the carpet, unconscious. Harper scrambled backward on the bed. She pulled her knees to her chest. Maddox turned his glowing gold eyes toward the doorway. 5 rival wolves pushed past Briggs and Holt, rushing into the master bedroom. They saw the Alpha King and bared their teeth, ready to challenge his throne. They made a fatal error. Maddox let out a deafening snarl. He waded into the pack of intruders. He became a whirlwind of brutal, unforgiving violence. A gray wolf lunged for his chest. Maddox sidestepped the attack. He swung his right arm in a devastating arc. The thick black leather glove creaked. The heavy silver signet ring connected with the wolf's ribs. The toxic metal seared through the animal's flesh. The sound of sizzling skin filled the room, masking the smell of wet fur with the stench of burns. The gray wolf collapsed, howling in agony. 2 more wolves attacked from the sides. Maddox grabbed one by the scruff of its neck and slammed it into the hardwood floor. The impact cracked the floorboards. He kicked the other beast in the jaw, sending it flying into the sleek wooden nightstand. The furniture splintered into jagged pieces. Harper watched the carnage with wide eyes. She pressed her back against the headboard. Maddox did not fight like a civilized CEO. He fought like an apex predator defending his territory. He used his bare hands and the toxic metal band to dismantle Gareth's strike team piece by piece. The bedroom turned into a war zone. Feathers from torn pillows drifted through the red emergency lighting. Broken wood and shattered glass covered the floor. Maddox stood in the center of the destruction, a feral beast wrapped in the ruined shreds of expensive wool garments. Chapter 15. The slaughter spilled from the bedroom back into the corridor. Maddox dragged the last 2 standing rival wolves out of the room by their tails. He tossed them into the hallway walls like discarded trash bags. His chest heaved with exertion, but he showed zero signs of fatigue. The feral rage fueled his every movement. Briggs and Holt, both covered in deep scratches and bite marks, shifted back into their human forms. They leaned against the corridor walls, panting hard. Their black suits lay in shredded piles on the floor. "The perimeter is clear," Holt reported, holding a hand over a bleeding wound on his ribcage. Maddox did not acknowledge the guard. He stood over the defeated strike team. He raised his right fist, the silver signet ring gleaming in the red emergency light. He brought the heavy metal band down on the nearest rival's shoulder, leaving a permanent, raw burn mark to brand the traitor. The enemy wolf whimpered and went still. This is the monster hiding under the tailored wool, Harper thought. The fight was over, but Maddox remained trapped in the bloodlust. His glowing gold eyes darted around the hallway, searching for another threat. He paced back and forth, his boots crunching on broken glass and splintered wood. A low, vibrating growl rumbled deep in his chest. "King Maddox," Briggs called out, his voice cautious. "The threat is neutralized. Stand down." Maddox snapped his head toward the guard. He bared his fangs. He did not recognize his own elite fighters. In his feral state, anything that moved was a target. Briggs and Holt exchanged a nervous glance. They took a slow, deliberate step backward. They knew better than to approach an alpha king lost in a combat high. Harper watched the standoff from the edge of the ruined king-sized bed. She saw the guards retreating. She saw the raw, unrestrained power radiating from Maddox. He looked terrifying. He looked like a creature out of a horror movie. Captain ruffled his feathers inside the brass wire carrier. "Good dog!" the parrot squawked. "Good dog!" The ridiculous phrase cut through the tension in the room. Harper let out a shaky breath. She looked at Maddox pacing the floor. He was not a mindless beast. He was a man who lost his grip trying to protect her from an ambush. She slid off the mattress. Her scuffed brown work boots touched the carpet. "Miss Harper," Holt warned from the hallway. "Stay back. He is not in control of his senses." Harper ignored the bleeding guard. She looked down at the floor near her feet. She spotted the dismantled brass lamp base resting near the bed frame. She kicked the heavy metal stock with the toe of her boot. It hit a solid piece of hardwood flooring with a loud, ringing clang. Maddox spun around at the noise. He stared into the bedroom, his gold eyes locking onto her. He crouched low, his muscles bunching under his ruined dress shirt. He looked ready to pounce. Harper did not run. She did not reach for a weapon. She stood her ground in the center of the destruction, offering zero resistance. "Maddox," Harper said. Her voice carried a steady, even tone. The feral king took a step toward her. The growl in his chest grew louder, echoing off the cracked windows. Chapter 16. Maddox advanced into the bedroom. He kicked a broken piece of the sleek wooden nightstand out of his path. His gold eyes tracked Harper's every breath. He stopped 3 feet away from her, looming over her smaller frame. Harper tipped her head back to look him in the eye. "The fight is over," Harper stated. Maddox let out a sharp snarl. He raised his bare left hand, his claws extending. "Do not move, Miss Harper," Briggs cautioned from the doorway. He needs an anchor, not a victim, Harper thought. Harper took a deliberate step forward, closing the distance between them. She ignored the lethal claws. She ignored the terrifying fangs. She focused solely on the man trapped beneath the feral instincts. "Look at me, Maddox," Harper commanded. She injected her usual sarcastic bite into the words. "You ruined your ridiculous expensive jacket. Gary is never going to pay for dry cleaning." Maddox paused. His hand hovered in the air. He tilted his head, confused by the lack of fear in her tone. Harper took a deep breath. Her natural scent wafted through the space between them. The fragrance of sun-warmed apricots and spun sugar hit his senses, cutting through the heavy smell of copper and wet fur. The scent recognition slammed into his brain. Maddox blinked. The unnatural gold color began to recede from his irises, replaced by his familiar dark brown eyes. The sharp fangs retracted. The claws shrank back into his nail beds. The feral posture melted away, leaving a tired, blood-soaked man standing in the middle of a wrecked room. He lowered his left hand. He looked at the destruction around him. He looked at the shattered, bulletproof glass. He looked at the unconscious wolves littering the hallway. Finally, his gaze settled on Harper. She stood close enough to touch him, wearing her faded indigo delivery jacket and an expression of pure stubbornness. A wave of deep shame hit Maddox like a bucket of ice water. He spent his entire life maintaining iron discipline. He isolated himself to keep his beast locked away. Now, he had lost control in front of the one person he wanted to protect. "I told you to stay in the room," Maddox said. His voice sounded hoarse and hollow. "I stayed in the room," Harper pointed out. "The room just happened to get invaded by a dozen angry dogs." Maddox looked away from her face. "You should have hidden." "I am a terrible hider. Plus, I had a brass stick. I was prepared." Maddox let out a tired sigh. He reached up with his bare hand and rubbed the back of his neck. He looked at the dismantled metal lamp base resting on the carpet. "Did you hit one of them with the decor again?" Maddox asked. "I aimed for the snout," Harper confirmed. "It worked." The corner of Maddox's mouth twitched. The fierce, terrifying king managed a small, genuine smile, despite the carnage surrounding them. "Clear the corridor," Maddox ordered his guards over his shoulder. He regained his calm, authoritative tone. "Throw Gareth's trash in the alley. Tell the elders we are calling a full-pack meeting at sunrise." Briggs and Holt nodded, getting to work on dragging the unconscious rivals toward the fire stairs. Maddox turned his attention back to the brave, impossible human standing in front of him. She grounded his beast with a few sassy words and the scent of sugar. He knew he could not hide the truth from her any longer. "We need to talk," Maddox declared. "There is something you need to know about us." Chapter 17. Maddox stood in the center of the ruined master bedroom. His chest heaved. The remains of his $10,000 dark charcoal-tailored suit hung in shredded ribbons from his broad shoulders. Blood from the defeated rival strike team stained his hands, but his dark brown eyes looked clear and focused. He stared at Harper. She stood her ground near the cracked, bulletproof window, her empty hands curled into tight fists. "You are shaking, Harper," Maddox said. His voice sounded rough, scraping against the silent room. Harper did not relax her stance. She glanced at the splintered wood of the destroyed nightstand, then back to his face. "You just threw a giant wolf through a reinforced glass pane," Harper pointed out. "I prefer keeping my distance for another minute." "I will never hurt you," Maddox promised. "You lost your mind 10 seconds ago," Harper argued. She tapped her battered footwear against the carpet. "You grew fangs. Your eyes turned gold. You looked like a feral beast." "I lost my temper," Maddox corrected. He took a slow step forward, navigating around the torn velvet curtains littering the floor. "Gareth sent his soldiers to harm you. My instincts took over. I eliminated the threat." "You slaughtered them." "I protected what is mine." Harper narrowed her eyes. She planted her scuffed boots firmly on the carpet. "I belong to nobody. I pay my own rent. I drive my own rattling delivery van. Do not act like you own me." Maddox stopped walking. He let out a long, exhausted breath. He reached up with his bare left hand and rubbed the back of his neck. He kept his right hand, covered by the thick hide glove and the toxic silver ring, resting at his side. "You do not understand the rules of my kind," Maddox stated. "When I bit the cardboard pastry carton in the holding cell, I caught your scent. The recognition hit my system instantly. You are my fated mate." Harper stared at him. She let the words hang in the air. "Your mate," Harper repeated. "Yes, it is a biological soul tie. It is permanent." Harper let out a dry, sharp laugh. She stepped away from the cracked window, putting more distance between them. "I barely survive allergy season, and a billionaire shifter wants to tie my soul to his dangerous life," Harper thought. "Magic destiny does not exist," Harper countered. "I am a baker. You are an underground king. We have zero things in common. My favorite hobby is watching reality television, and your favorite hobby is throwing men through walls. Fate does not care about our hobbies, Maddox said. Fate paired us together, and because Gareth's men saw me defend you, the entire rival faction knows you are my weakness. They will never stop hunting you. Harper crossed her arms over her faded indigo uniform jacket. The cold reality of the situation settled into her bones. She lived in a war zone now. "So what is your grand plan?" Harper demanded. "Keep me locked inside this bulletproof tower forever?" "No," Maddox answered. He stepped closer, closing the distance until she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "I offer you the bite." "Excuse me?" "I will turn you," Maddox explained. "The conversion will grant you our speed, our strength, and our extended lifespan. You will possess the power to defend yourself against any rival. You will rule by my side as an immortal equal." Harper looked at his sharp jawline. She pictured herself growing fangs. She pictured herself tearing up hotel corridors. The image felt wrong. "What are the side effects?" Harper asked. "A magical bite has to carry a catch." Maddox respected her intelligence too much to lie. He kept his posture rigid and his tone flat. "The transition is agonizing," Maddox admitted. "The venom rewrites your DNA. It breaks every bone in your body and rebuilds them." Harper swallowed hard. "And the survival rate?" Maddox did not blink. 50%. Harper stared at the Alpha King. She processed the brutal statistics. He wanted her to flip a coin with her own life. "Half of the humans who take the bite die," Harper summarized. "Yes, but if you survive, you become unbreakable." "I refuse," Harper declared. She did not hesitate. "Keep your teeth away from me. I am staying human." Chapter 18. Maddox froze. He tilted his head, studying her defiant expression. He commanded hundreds of loyal soldiers. Nobody ever rejected a direct offer from the king. "You face constant danger as a human," Maddox argued. "A single scratch from a rogue fighter will end your life. The bite is your best chance at survival." "A 50% mortality rate is not a chance," Harper snapped. "It is a death sentence. I like my life. I like baking pastries. I like my fragile human bones. I will not gamble my existence for a crown." "Gareth will send assassins every week," Maddox warned. "Then you will fight them off every week," Harper shot back. She poked an index finger hard against his chest. "You drag me into this mess. You protect me. That is your job. You claimed I am yours. Prove it." Maddox stared down at the finger poking his ruined dress shirt. The dominant anger inside him flared, demanding submission, but the sensible leader recognized her fierce logic. She demanded accountability. She refused to change her nature to make his life easier. "You demand a lot from a man who just tore a room apart for you," Maddox noted. "I demand basic respect," Harper countered. "I am not taking the bite. If you want a magic, immortal queen, go find a shifter. If you want me, you accept me exactly as I am." Captain ruffled his bright feathers inside the wire travel cage. "Exactly!" Captain squawked. "Exactly!" Maddox shot a dark glare at the blue and gold macaw. He turned his attention back to the stubborn woman standing in front of him. She showed zero fear. She stood amidst broken glass and splintered wood, dictating terms to the most dangerous predator in the city. Maddox felt a sudden, profound rush of pride. His mate did not need fangs to display true alpha strength. Her bravery outshone any physical weapon. "I accept your terms," Maddox declared. His deep voice carried a solemn, binding weight. Harper dropped her hand from his chest. She let out a shaky breath, realizing she had just won a standoff with a monster. "You accept?" Harper asked, wanting confirmation. "I do," Maddox said. He reached out with his bare left hand and gently tucked a stray strand of auburn hair behind her ear. The gentle touch contrasted sharply with the violence he just unleashed. "You will remain human. I will place a permanent guard detail on your bakery. I will reinforce the doors to your apartment. I will tear the throat out of anyone who looks at you wrong." A bit dramatic, but I appreciate the sentiment, Harper replied. Briggs appeared in the ruined doorway. The guard held a hand over his bleeding ribs. He cleared his throat to announce his presence. King Maddox, Briggs interrupted. The corridor is clear. Holt secured the fire stairs and restored the main power grid. The elevators are active. The sun is rising, and the faction elders are arriving in the lobby. Maddox dropped his hand from Harper's hair. The soft, quiet moment vanished. The ruthless leader returned to his eyes. Bring the elders up to the living area, Maddox ordered. We hold the council meeting here, amidst the wreckage. They will demand an explanation for the breach, Briggs warned. They will receive an introduction, Maddox corrected. Maddox turned to Harper. He offered his left arm. Walk with me, Maddox requested. It is time to meet your new subjects. Harper looked at his offered arm. She looked down at her faded indigo delivery uniform. It carried stains from rain and stale cooking oil. I am underdressed for a royal presentation, Harper noted. You look perfect, Maddox said. He is insane, and I am insane for agreeing to this, Harper thought. Harper looped her arm through his. She left the ruined bedroom behind. She marched out into the hallway, her worn work footwear crunching over shattered glass, ready to face a room full of judging monsters. Chapter 19. The morning sun cast a pale light through the cracked floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse. The luxury living space looked like a disaster zone. Overturned white couches, shattered glass tables, and deep claw marks ruined the pristine showroom aesthetic. 8 faction elders stood in a semicircle near the kitchen island. They wore expensive suits and possessed stern, weathered faces. They murmured among themselves, glaring at the destruction. Maddox led Harper into the room. The elders fell silent. They stared at the Alpha King and his bruised, exhausted guards. Then, their sharp eyes locked onto Harper. They analyzed her faded work jacket, her messy auburn hair, and her distinct lack of shifter energy. An older man with silver hair stepped to the front of the group. He carried a wooden cane. King Maddox, the silver-haired man greeted. We received reports of an attack. We see Gareth's strike team breach the primary fortress. Explain this failure. The breach is neutralized, Corbin, Maddox stated. His voice commanded instant obedience. Gareth violated the peace treaty. I intend to strip his territory before nightfall. Corbin slammed the tip of his wooden cane against the hardwood floor. You risk a faction war, Corbin argued. He pointed a long, crooked finger at Harper. And you risk our secrets by bringing this fragile creature into our sanctuary. The human smells like sugar and fear. She is a liability. Harper unlinked her arm from Maddox. She took a step forward, placing herself between the king and the arrogant elder. I smell like apricots, actually, Harper corrected. And I possess zero fear of a man who needs a walking stick to intimidate people. The elders gasped. A collective rumble of growls vibrated through the room. Maddox remained silent. He crossed his arms over his shredded chest, watching his mate work. He refused to intervene. He knew she needed to establish her own dominance. Corbin narrowed his eyes. You dare speak to a council member, human? I speak to anyone who insults me in my own living room, Harper shot back. This is not your living room. You are a weak, temporary distraction. You have no fangs. You have no claws. You cannot defend the pack. Harper let out a sharp, mocking laugh. She gestured around the wrecked penthouse. Look around, Corbin, Harper commanded. Gareth sent 12 of your so-called superior fighters to this floor. They brought claws. They brought fangs. They brought a lot of misplaced confidence. She walked over to the nearest overturned couch and kicked a piece of broken wood out of her path. And where are they now? Harper continued, her voice rising with fierce authority. They are bleeding in the alley. Meanwhile, I am standing here without a single scratch on my body. I defeated an attacker with a brass desk lamp. I survived the ambush. Your superior warriors did not. Corbin clenched his jaw. He tightened his grip on the wooden cane. He searched for a counter-argument, but the visual evidence of the destroyed room supported her claims. If you show these mutts a single ounce of doubt, they will eat you alive, Harper thought. Maddox is the king, Harper declared, pacing in front of the council. He chose me. I did not ask for the crown, but I refuse to let a group of grumpy old men tell me I am weak. If any of you have a problem with my humanity, you can take it up with the heavy metal stock I left in the bedroom. The room remained dead silent. The faction elders looked at the fierce, scuffed-up woman. They looked at the Alpha King, who wore a proud, dangerous smirk on his face. Maddox stepped up beside her. He raised his right hand, displaying the thick hide glove and the toxic silver band. "Harper is your queen," Maddox announced. The finality in his tone left zero room for debate. "Anyone who disrespects her will face my ring. Do we have an understanding?" Corbin lowered his wooden cane. He bowed his head, exposing his neck in a sign of deep submission. The other 7 elders followed suit, bowing their heads to the delivery driver. Harper stood tall, her heart racing, securing her place at the top of the food chain without throwing a single punch. Chapter 20. The chaotic morning bled into a quiet afternoon. The penthouse cleaning crew worked efficiently, removing the shattered glass and splintered furniture from the living area. Harper sat on a tall bar stool at the marble kitchen island. She wore a clean pair of sweatpants borrowed from Maddox's vast wardrobe. Her faded indigo jacket hung over the back of the chair. Briggs placed a fresh porcelain plate in front of her. He wore a crisp, new black suit to replace his shredded one. The plate held a giant stack of fluffy pancakes dripping with maple syrup. "Thank you, Cole," Harper said, picking up her fork. "My pleasure, Queen Harper," Briggs replied. He bowed his head and retreated to the elevator lobby. Harper cringed at the title, but she shoved a giant bite of food into her mouth anyway. Maddox walked into the kitchen. He wore a crisp, dark navy button-down shirt and clean trousers. He looked refreshed, the feral beast securely locked away behind his sensible, polished exterior. He held her metal van keys in his bare left hand. He placed the keys on the marble counter next to her battered hide pouch, which had survived the living room destruction untouched. "I recovered your van keys from the lobby," Maddox announced. Harper wiped syrup from her lip. She scooped the keys into her bag and patted the worn leather. "Good," Harper said, "because I have deliveries to make tomorrow. Gary expects me to clock in at 6. Maddox pulled out the adjacent bar stool and sat down. He rested his arms on the cool stone counter. The dark leather barrier on his right hand stood out against the white marble. "I will purchase the bakery from Gary," Maddox offered. "You do not need to work a minimum wage job." "I like my job," Harper argued, "and I like my boss. You are not buying my bakery, and you are not buying my freedom. I have $10 billion in liquid assets. Let me spoil my mate." Harper set her fork down. She looked at the incredibly wealthy, dangerous man sitting next to her. A brilliant idea sparked in her mind. "If you want to spend your money, I have a proposal," Harper stated. Maddox leaned closer. "Name your price." "I want $50,000 transferred from the PAC treasury by tomorrow morning," Harper demanded. Maddox raised an eyebrow. He did not blink at the sum. "Done. What are you purchasing?" "An abandoned warehouse on the east side," Harper explained. "I am opening a sanctuary for unwanted animals. Stray dogs, abandoned cats, injured birds. I want to build a safe haven." Maddox stared at her. A slow, genuine smile spread across his handsome face. "You demand a fortune from a pack of wolves to build a dog rescue?" Maddox summarized. "The irony is staggering." "I consider it a poetic tax," Harper shot back. She picked up a piece of a leftover glazed donut from a side plate. She walked over to the brass wire travel cage resting at the end of the counter. She pushed the sugary treat through the metal bars. Captain snatched the pastry. He bobbed his head up and down. "Poetic! Poetic!" Captain squawked. Maddox watched the chaotic macaw drop crumbs onto his spotless marble counter. "The bird stays in the kitchen," Maddox ordered. "He is banned from the master bedroom." "The bird sleeps where I sleep," Harper countered, walking back to her stool. "You accept the human, you accept the parrot." Maddox let out a deep, rumbling laugh. The sound filled the quiet kitchen. He reached out with his bare hand and covered her hand resting on the counter. The warmth of his skin sent a pleasant shiver down her spine. "I showed up to deliver pastries, and I ended up adopting a billionaire werewolf," Harper thought. "I accept all your terms, Harper Hayes," Maddox promised. Harper squeezed his fingers. She looked out the cracked, bulletproof windows at the sun breaking through the storm clouds. She knew Gareth still lurked in the city. She knew the faction wars were far from over. But as she sat next to the fierce Alpha King, eating pancakes and planning her animal shelter, Harper felt ready to face whatever monster knocked on her door next. The end. Quick favor, Pack. Don't go anywhere yet. If you thought Harper was brave for smacking a feral werewolf in the snout with a brass lamp and demanding a dog rescue from the Lycan King, wait until you meet the heroine in this next story on your screen. You have to hear this disaster unfold. Click the video on your screen right now. It is absolutely unhinged.